Hi, happy holidays and welcome to my channel, Knotty Gnome Crafts. My name is Sarah and you can find me as Knotty Gnome on Instagram. If this is your first visit to my channel, thank you so much for joining me, and if you're coming back, thanks for watching again. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, make sure that you hit the like button and click that subscribe button so that you'll know when I upload new videos. Today's video is going to be my Little Red Dress project reveal. The Little Red Dress project is a hashtag that was started by Renata of the Twilight Stitcher, and this year's challenge is also being co-hosted by Kira of the Island Socialist, and I will link both of their channels in the description box below, and also the hashtag on Instagram, so that you can look up all of the gorgeous red dresses that people are submitting. I have never actually participated in this challenge before. This is my first time, but red is my favorite color, so I definitely wanted to do it this year. My outfit of the day is the Simplicity 9385, and I'm also wearing a Magnolia cardigan by Hopi Locatelli that was knit out of some Miss Babs fingering weight yarn. Okay, so if you watched my first video, and if you did not, I will go ahead and put a link up in the card so you can check it out. I was deciding between three patterns. It was the Named Clothing Kilo wrap dress, there was a Butterick pattern with a twist dress, a front with a twist, and then there was a Simplicity pattern that was a wrap dress. So thank you so much to everyone who left comments and suggestions on that video. I did read each and every one of them and I took them to heart. And so when I was narrowing down my options, I agreed with many of the posters who said that the named clothing dress, named clothing drafts for a very tall person, so I forget if it's like 5'10 or 5'11, but I'm 4'9", and although I am very used to having to shorten all of my patterns because I'm so short, having to shorten it when the pattern's drafted for someone who's more than a foot taller than me is maybe a little bit more than I wanted to take on. I do have the Named Clothing book, Breaking the Pattern, and I've made a couple patterns from that book, and I have had some issues with some fitting, and I do wonder if it has to do with because their draft is so much, the ideal person they're drafting for is so much taller than me. So anyway, and I also don't have that pattern in my stash. I would have had to purchase it, and I really did want to focus on using what I already have, so I decided against that one. The next one, the Butterick pattern, although I do really like the style of the twist dress, my feeling on that is that that style goes in and out of fashion, and I just felt like if I made that one, it would have a short shelf life before I just felt like it looked too dated. Just as an example, like, do you guys remember when a few years back, everybody was wearing those t-shirts that had like the twist or the knot at the bottom so it looks like you tied it in a knot, but the shirt is just constructed that way? Like, I was not sewing when that was in fashion, but I had quite a few of them that I had purchased ready to wear, and I wore them all the time. And then they just kind of like disappeared. And so I feel like now if I saw somebody in 2021 wearing a top like that, I would just look at them and be like, you're still wearing those? It's because I'm a jerk. But even though I'm sure that most people aren't jerks and they wouldn't be like that, that's how I feel like the twist dress would look in another year or so. That, like, if I was still wearing it, people would just be like, why are you still wearing that? So ultimately I decided against that one. So that left the Simplicity wrap dress. And so I was all ready to cut that one out. And one evening I sat down and got out the instructions and looked them over. And I realized that that pattern really isn't suitable for knits. It does say on the pattern envelope that it is suitable for knits, and I even actually went back to Joann and bought a second copy of the pattern in case I needed to do different sizes for knits versus wovens. But that pattern has princess seams, it has darts, it has a facing, it has all of these elements that to me just made it much more of a woven dress and not really a knit dress. So ultimately, the only knit that I would use for that pattern is probably like a Ponte or a very stable knit. And what I was actually using was a cotton modal spandex jersey that has a lot of drape. So I'm like, okay, well, this is a huge pain in the neck. I want to make a wrap style dress, but I don't want to use this pattern. I'd rather use something that's meant specifically for knits. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to look through my stash and see. I must have something that will work for a knit wrap dress. And so I'm looking through my pattern collection on Trello, and I came up with the Miss Ruby Tuesday dress from One Puddle Lane. So I've made this dress one time before. It is a faux wrap. It's actually a lot of different mix and match bodices and skirts that you can put together, but there are several instances of faux wraps that you can use as the bodice. And I was thinking, you know, I think that that silhouette would really work. So like I said, I have made this dress one time before, and it was one of my superstar makes. And if you have not watched that video, I will link it up in the cards so you can see it. I made it out of a green velvet. And I decided that I did not want my little red dress to be too similar to that one. And so I chose slightly different versions for my dress. So originally what I picked was, there's a plain wrap style. I picked that as the bodice. And then for the skirt, I chose the A-line skirt. And I don't particularly like A-line skirts, but to be honest with you, I really just picked the A-line because I didn't want it to be too similar to my green dress, which has more of a pencil skirt. So I went the wrap bodice with the A-line skirt, and then for the sleeves, I did what I said I was going to do in my plans video, and I went ahead and adapted the sleeve to be more like the Galena dress from Little Lizard King, that sleeve, because it's a very flowy bishop sleeve with a cuff, and I really like the look of it. So I'll just tell you quickly how I did that, because that was actually really easy to do. I printed out the short sleeve of the Miss Ruby Tuesday dress and just kept the cap exactly the same. So I just traced the short sleeve pattern out on tracing paper so that it would fit the armhole perfectly. And then I took the Galena dress sleeve pattern and laid it on top of my tracing paper. And then I just traced around, like basically like, you know, maybe an inch or two below the underarm. I just traced that out, you know, making sure the grain lines were parallel and all of that so that it would line up correctly. And then I traced out the lower part of the sleeve because it's really big and billowy towards the wrist. And I also traced out the cuff pattern. And then all I had to do was just sort of gently blend the original underarm to the Galena underarm. And that was really simple to do. There was only one tiny little wrinkle, is that they had different seam allowances, so I did have to adjust for the different seam allowances. But once I did that, it was really easy to just smooth those lines together. And so I have a sleeve cap that fits into the top the way that it's meant to, but it billows out to this beautiful bishop sleeve with a cuff. So I'm really happy with how that part turned out. Now let me tell you about all of the things that went wrong with this dress. So I had printed out and cut out the size small. My measurements put me in a size extra small. However, the first time that I made this dress, I made it according to my measurements, and it turned out a little bit too tight. And the stretch of my fabric this time, the cotton modal spandex, was about 50%. And it's about the same level of stretch of the velvet that I did last time. So I was thinking, oh, I should go up a size because last time it was too tight. It's a similar level of stretch. I don't want it to be too tight again, and so I went up a size. That was not a good idea because I made up the size small. I basically sewed the entire dress together. It's really easy and quick to construct. The only thing I had not finished was the hem, but the whole thing was together. And I tried it on, and it just looked so blah. Like, that's all that I can think to say it. It was just very bland, and it just looked not good. So a lot of the problem was that it was too big. The bodice was too long. The waist seam was not hitting me at my natural waist. It was a little bit, about an inch below my natural waist. It was too big so that it was not form-fitting against my waist. So it was very like kind of shapeless looking. And the A-line skirt just was not doing anything for me. I mean, I knew this ahead of time. I was just trying to be different from my other version. But I look good in pencil skirts. I do not look good in A-line skirts. It just looked really, because I'm so rectangular, I kind of need my dresses to give me some shape because I don't naturally have shape. And the A-line just made it look very like dumpy, basically. So I do have some video footage of me in the dress that I originally constructed so that you can see what the before was like. And I was just really unhappy and disappointed with this dress. I'm like, I don't like this at all. This is not what I was imagining. I did like the sleeves, but that was the only thing that I liked. So I put the dress aside for a few days and I just decided to kind of sit on it and decide what to do. I didn't want to give up on it, but I just needed a little bit of time. So I took a few days away from it, came back to it, and so I basically kind of tiptoed my way to getting a dress that I liked. So I kind of just did things in steps. So the first thing that I decided to do was I needed to raise up the waist seam so that it was at my natural waist. So I just, since it was about an inch too long, I just serged a new waist seam that was an inch higher. So that worked. So I tried it on, the waist was in the correct place, but it was still too big and baggy in the side seams. So I went in with my serger and I kind of, I pinched out like how much fabric I wanted to remove from the waist, and then, averaged it so that it was even on both sides. And then I went in with my serger and just cut off close to the waist, like tapered from the underarm here, like kept this the same, tapered in at the waist and then back out at the hip. Tried it on again. The waist looked better. I had a more defined waist, but it just still didn't really look good. So I'm like, okay, now what should I do? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna make it a pencil skirt because the pencil skirt flatters me. The A-line skirt does not flatter me. The only reason that I wanted to do an A-line skirt was I just didn't want two of the same dress, but like, who cares? No one's gonna know. So I went in with the original pattern piece of the pencil skirt that I had used the first time around, and I just laid it out on my dress and kind of traced around the silhouette of it so that I would know where the lines should be. And then I went in with my serger again and cut off the excess fabric so that it's no longer an A-line and instead it's a pencil skirt. And I tried it on again, and then that was it. When I did that, I put on the dress and I was like, yes, this looks like 1,000 times better than it did originally. So I just went ahead and hemmed it. I did it on my cover stitch. I did like a 5/8 inch hem, and my dress was done. So even though it was a little bit of a journey to get there, I am happy with the way that it turned out. I'm going to insert the footage now of me walking in the modified dress, and I hope that you will agree with me that it looks much better than it did originally. And I will also insert some photos of me wearing it. I did brave the outdoors even though it is snowing really hard right now. I went ahead and went outside and took a few pictures just in the spirit of the holiday season. And please let me know in the comments what you think of my dress. Like, do you think that I made the right decision in the end? Are you happy with it? I'm happy with it. I think it's a really pretty Christmas dress. I do plan on wearing this the way that I intended to, which is I'll wear it to the office. I'll wear it on date nights. I think that it's a really beautiful dress, and I'm really thrilled with how it came out in the end, even though it was a little bit of a journey to get there. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you next time.